Welcome to Random Flyer, the podcast that brings you the true stories from New Zealand's airline history. Today, we're looking at the NAC Air New Zealand Boeing 737 Series 200 fleet, their origins, and what they went on to after flying for Air New Zealand. The 737 was ordered here to replace the Vickers-Viscount turboprops on New Zealand's main trunk network. The short-range, narrow-bodied twin-jet was up against the British Aircraft Corporation's BAC-111 and the Douglas, later McDonnell Douglas, DC-9, but won out despite concerns for New Zealand's trading links with the United Kingdom and the financial costs of purchasing on the American market. The Boeing 737 had been developed to supplement the Boeing 727 on shorter routes that required less capacity. Like the 727, the twin-jet retained the 707 fuselage width with the 6 abreast seating, but with two wing-mounted Pratt & Whitney JT8D low-bypass turbofan engines. Preliminary design work began in May 1964, and the first 737, a 100 series plane, made its first flight in April 1967 and entered service in February 1968 with Lufthansa. The Series 200 had its maiden flight 4 months after the 100 series on 8 August 1967, and the inaugural flight for United Airlines took place on 28 April 1968. Meanwhile, back in New Zealand, on Thursday 4 May 1967 and following years of public discussion, the government announced that the company would be permitted to purchase Boeing 737s, and on 18 July 1967, National Airways Corporation signed the contract to buy 3 of the type to be delivered in 1968. The first plane, ZK NAC, went onto the production line in October 1967. Meanwhile, contracts were awarded that month for New Zealand firms for tow tractors and other ground support equipment. Reservations for the first flight on the new jet opened on 15 July 1968. They were for flights between Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch and Dunedin. The Auckland to Wellington flight time, previously 1 hour 25 minutes by Viscount, was cut by 25 minutes to 1 hour. The direct flight between Auckland and Christchurch, previously 2 hours by Viscount, was cut by 35 minutes to just 1 hour 25. When the first plane arrived in September 1968, it was opened for inspection to the public in Christchurch. Steps were set up each side of the plane on the forward and rear doors to permit attendees to climb into the cabin for a brief look before disembarking down the other side. Despite the cold wind and scattered rain, more than 11,000 people visited the airplane there between 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. ZK NAC was the first Boeing 737 219 in New Zealand service and was delivered new to National Airways on 30 August 1968 and entered service on Monday 14 October. ZK NAC was powered by 2 Pratt & Whitney JT8D-7 engines. It transferred to Air New Zealand as part of the merger on 1 April 1978 and was named Piri Piri. After retirement from New Zealand service, it was exported to the United States as N321XV in April 1986 for Presidential Airways on lease from ILFC. The aircraft subsequently operated for America West Airlines from May 87, Copa Airlines of Panama, October 87, Inter-Canadian of Canada, April 1988 with upgraded engines, and finally Olympic Airways of Greece from March 1989 before being disposed of. New Zealand's first 737 jet was broken up at Mojave Airport, California in August 1992, age 24 years. ZK NAD was the first of 2 737s of the same registration and was the second of the type to be delivered to NAC on 12 September 1968. It was fitted with Pratt & Whitney JT8D-7 engines. ZK NAD joined Air New Zealand as part of the merger on 1 April 1978. It was named Pukeko. It then became N322XV with Presidential Airways in March 1986, on lease from ILFC, before moving to America West Airlines in 1987, Inter-Canadian in April 1988, and Olympic Airways in 1989, where it was renamed Jason. It was retired to Lorem Maxton Airport, North Carolina in 1990, where it remains derelict at 57 years of age. ZK NAE was the third of that first batch of Boeing 737s that was delivered to NAC on 7 October 1968. It transferred to Air New Zealand as part of the merger in April 1978 and was named Paruru. It was later exported to the United States as N453AC and served AirCal from March 1986, American Airlines July 1987, Airmark Aviation September 1992, and Transtar Airlines January 1993. By the mid-1990s, the aircraft had been withdrawn from use and was broken up in March 1999 at Roswell Industrial Air Center, New Mexico, age 31 years. ZK NAJ, originally earmarked as N73714, was built as a 297 series for Aloha Airlines but was not taken up. It was subsequently remodeled as a 219 and delivered to NAC on 18 July 1971. It was later operated by Air New Zealand following the merger as Puri from April 1978. NAJ was the first NAC 737 to be powered by Pratt & Whitney JT8D-9A engines instead of the 7s. These engines provided around 500 foot-pounds more thrust, mainly from improved turbine temperature limits and airflow management. PW revised the low-pressure compressor section and made minor changes to the turbine cooling and fuel control systems. This allowed the 9A to run at slightly higher core pressure ratios, giving a bit more efficiency and reducing smoke emissions compared with the earlier JT8D-7 engines. This saved around 1-2% in fuel burn and reduced maintenance intervals. It was exported in 1986 as N7310F for Frontier Airlines on lease from ILFC, then Continental Airlines, remaining with Continental until being retired in 1998. It was broken up at Ardmore Municipal Airport. ZK-NAK was first delivered to Pacific Southwest Airlines on 19 June 1969. It then went to NAC on 13 September 1973 and was named Puhi Puhi under Air New Zealand as part of the merger in 1978. This was a Boeing 737-214 powered by JT8D-9A engines. In 1987, it became N323XV in the United States, first with Presidential Airways from March 86 to 87, then America West Airlines June 87, Eagle Air of Iceland April 1988, Aviation Sales Company in 1990, and finally Casino Express in May 1992. The aircraft was withdrawn from use and stored at Opaloka in Miami in 2002 and is reported to have been scrapped. ZK-NAL was first delivered to Pacific Southwest Airlines on 24 July 1965 as N985PS. It went to NAC on 12 September 1974 and transferred to Air New Zealand as part of the merger in 1978. It was the first of two ZK-NALs in the Air New Zealand 737 fleet. It was exported as N460AC, first joining Aircal in 1981, later flying for American Airlines in 87, Braniff in 89, Air Tanguru in Kiribati in 1991, Conquest Sun Airlines 1993, and finally AirTran Airways, September 1994, as N460AT. It changed lessors several times before being withdrawn from use in the late 1990s. ZK-NAL was broken up in the year 2000 at Miami Opaloka Executive Airport. ZK-NAP was delivered to NAC on 4 September and was the first advanced 737-219 with Pratt & Whitney JT8D-17 engines. The 17s provided a significant boost in the performance over the 9As, producing up to 17,400 foot-pounds of thrust compared with the 9A's 14,500. This was enabled by the redesign of fan and compressor stages, allowing a higher mass of airflow through the engine and higher turbine inlet temperature limits. This permitted a 4-5% reduction in fuel burn and increased hot section life and on-wing time of around 25% between overhauls. It was also slightly quieter and reduced visible smoke. Practically, it meant quicker acceleration on short runways like at Wellington, carrying heavier payloads and lowering the fuel cost per seat mile. NAP passed to Air New Zealand as part of the merger in 1978. On retirement from there, it became HCBTI with SATA Air Ecuador in 1997. Also registered ZPCAB with Lapsa Air Paraguay, back to SETA through the mid-1990s. It later flew for Varig, Pluna, Global Air Mexico and Aerotropical between 1997 and 2004. NAP was broken up in October 2007 at Mexico City, aged 32 years. ZK-NAQ was delivered new to NAC on 20 November 1975 as a 737-219 Advanced. It was the first of two 737s registered as NAQ. However, it was also the only NAC 737 that did not pass on to Air New Zealand as part of the merger, as it went to Nigeria Airways in 1976 before the merger. After Nigeria, the plane went to Frontier Airlines in the United States in 1977, TEA Trans-European Airlines in 1978, Britannia Airways in 1979, and later through Ledeco and LAN Chile from 1990 onwards. The aircraft, re-registered CCCYC, alternated between those two Chilean carriers several times until its final operation by LAN in 2006. ZK-NAQ was broken up in February 2013 at Quito in Ecuador. ZK-NAM was delivered to NAC on 15 February 1974 as a 737-222 with JT8D-9A engines. It joined Air New Zealand as part of the merger in 1978 and was later sold in the United States as N7302F, entering service with Frontier Airlines in 1986, Continental Airlines in November 1986, and remained with Continental until its withdrawal from use at Ardmore Municipal Airport in July 1998, where it was scrapped. In 1978, NAC was merged with Air New Zealand, at which point Air New Zealand started buying their own 737s. This started with ZK-NAR being delivered to Air New Zealand on 12 October 1978 and was named Papiri. This 737-219 Advance was leased from AIA. It was then operated by Aviateca of Guatemala from 1994, Taka Airlines from July 1994, and Copa Airlines from late 1994-1995. It subsequently flew for Phoenix Aviation, Air Corridor of Mozambique, and AVE.com in the UAE, ending its career as A6PHF around 2007, currently reported as being stored. ZK-NAS was delivered to Air New Zealand on 1 July 1980. This Boeing 737-219 Advance later joined Copa Airlines as N318CM in 1995. From 2003 it flew for Phoenix Aviation as EX009 and later with AVE.com and iTech Air. This aircraft was lost in a crash on 24 August 2008 in Kyrgyzstan after an attempted emergency landing, killing 65 of the 90 on board. ZK-NQC was delivered on the 2nd of December 1982 as a Boeing 737-219C Advanced Quick Change Passenger Cargo Combi configuration and was named POPO. This aircraft served Air New Zealand, later Airwork New Zealand, and Freedom Air International from 2001 before returning to Airwork that same year. It was sold in Canada in 2012 as CGTVO and operated with J&L Aircraft Leasing, Starlink Aviation and Chrono Aviation, and has been flying cargo with Buffalo Airways in Canada since March 2025. GBAZI was built in 1974 and previously flown by Britannia Airways and Airways International Camry. This Boeing 737-204 Advanced was leased to Air New Zealand in November 1985 for 1 year. It retained the Pratt & Whitney JT8D-15 engines and the 132-seat layout. It later returned to the UK where it served with Aer Lingus and, again, Airways International Camry, before finishing with Embraer, Paramount Airways Services and Services Aerolíneas Mexicanas. It joined National Airways Chile in 1997, Advant Airways, LAN Chile and LAN Express, and cycled between these operators through the early 2000s before final operation by LAN from 2004 to 2006. GBAZI is now reported to have been scrapped. ZK-NAT is a Boeing 737-200 Advanced and was delivered 16 January 1986 to Air New Zealand, named Pahuihui. This plane was later sold to Aviaxa in Mexico as XA-NAF in 2000, then to BC Aircraft Leasing in 2009, and Star Air South Africa as ZSSSZ in 2010, before a final lease to Santico Express in 2011. ZK-NAT is reported to be in storage. ZK-NAU was a Boeing 737-219 Advanced and was delivered 21 January 1986 to Air New Zealand, named Pateki. The plane then joined Aviaxa in Mexico as XA-TWJ in 2002. It was withdrawn from use and stored at Cancun in 2009 and broken up in February 2022, aged 31 years. ZK-NAV was delivered to Air New Zealand on 10 February 1986 as Pukeko. It then flew for Aviaxa in Mexico as XA-NAV from 1999, then leased via BC Aircraft in 2009. Later registered in South Africa as ZSSMD, it served Star Air, Air Namibia, LAM Mozambique and ProFlight Zambia, before returning to Star Air in 2014 for storage. ZK-NAV is preserved in Johannesburg at the South African Airways Museum Society. ZK-NAW is a 737-219 Advanced and was delivered to Air New Zealand on 13 February 1986, named Pururu. It was the last of the 200 series Boeing 737s to exit the fleet at the end of 2002. It was then exported to Mexico as XA-TWV in January 2003 for Aviation. It was withdrawn from use in 2009 and is currently reported as being in storage. ZK-NAX, also a 737-219 Advanced, was delivered to Air New Zealand on 18 February 1986 and named Puri. It was sold to Aviation as XA-NAK in 2000 and painted in a 15 Anniversario special livery from 2005 to 2006. It later flew for Zambian Airways, Star Air and Air Namibia before being retired and stored at Johannesburg since 2013. ZK-NAY, a 737-219 Advanced, was delivered to Air New Zealand on 5 March 1986 and named Piri Piri. This plane then joined Aviation as XA-TWO in 2002 and was withdrawn from use and stored at Mexico City in 2009. It is currently preserved in Mexico City since 2020 as the Volando a la Utopia, Flying to Utopia book library. ZK-NAZ was a 737-2M6 Advanced, originally built for Royal Brunei Airlines, but was delivered to Air New Zealand on 6 August 1988. Powered by JT8D-15 engines, it entered New Zealand service late in the Classic era before being leased to Ledesco Airlines Chile, then LAN Chile. It continued alternating between LAN and Ledesco until withdrawal in 2002, later operating for Southern Wings Argentina as LVZYX, before being stored at Ezeiza in 2004. It was broken up in 2024 at Buenos Aires Airport. ZK-NAL, also a 737-2M6 Advanced, originally built for Royal Brunei Airlines, was the second ZK-NAL for Air New Zealand and was built in 1975. After use by Malaysia Airlines, it joined Air New Zealand on 2 September 1992, under lease from Aerospace Finance LLC. In 1993, it was exported to LAPA Argentina as LVVGF Altair, later flying for ARG Linea Privada Argentina, AIRG Linea Privada Argentina, and returning to LAPA until storage in Buenos Aires in 2003, where it was broken up in 2007. ZK-NAQ was the second of Air New Zealand's NAQs and was originally delivered to Brathings SAFE on 21 November 1975. This JT8D-17A equipped 205 Advanced 737 went to Air New Zealand on 3 September 1990, leased from Citicorp Leasing. It later flew for Cayman Airlines as VR or VPCAL, Pride of Grand Cayman, Arrive Air LLC, and finally Icaro Air Ecuador, ending up as a source of spare parts in 2011 and being completely broken down in February 2013 in Quito, Ecuador. ZK-NAA, a 204 Advanced, was first built for Britannia Airways as GBJCT, named the Honourable C.S. Rolls, and was delivered on 6 April 1982. It flew for Spantax, Midway, Eurolair before joining Air New Zealand on 9 November 1993 under lease from ILFC and was named Parakarika. It was later exported to ADC Airlines Nigeria as 5NBED from 2002 and was broken up in April 2007 at Lagos. ZK-NAI was delivered on 14 December 1993 from Britannia Airways, GBHWF, named Lord Brabazon of Tara. It was on a lease for 3 months in 1988. It was then purchased by Air New Zealand in December 1993 and was named Poaka. It was later sold to ADC Airlines as 5NBEE in 2002 and is currently reported as being stored. ZK-NAB, also a 204 Advanced, started out as GBHWE with Britannia Airways on 9 September 1980 as Sir Sidney Ham. It entered service with Air New Zealand on 15 February 1994 under lease from ILFC and was named Pereira. After withdrawal in 2001, it went to Airmark Indonesia as PKAIG and later Jatiyu Airlines, being retired by 2005. The plane is currently restored and preserved at Pudong, Shanghai as an instructional airframe at the Shanghai Pudong Foreign Affairs Services School. ZK-NAF started as 9H ABA with Air Malta on 11 March 1983. It was delivered to Air New Zealand on 30 September 1994 and was named Pohowera. This 737-2Y5 Advanced served Air New Zealand until it was leased to Royal Tongan Airlines in 1999, then to the US as N712S for Sierra Pacific Airways. After private ownership, it became HRMRZ for Aviation Honduras, carrying the Bay Islands Honduras special livery from 2019 and is still active at 42.6 years. ZK NAD, a 2Y5 Advanced, was the second NAD to fly for Air New Zealand. It was delivered on 4 January 1995, ex-Air Malta 9H ABC. This aircraft flew for Air New Zealand, then as N118RW for Winair and Frontier Airlines. It finished service with Atlantic Airlines Honduras and is stored at La Ceiba in 2008, where it was reported to be derelict. ZK NAH, another 2Y5 Advanced, was originally built for Air Malta and was delivered there on 31 March 1983. It served then and Sobel Air until being delivered to Air New Zealand on 6 November 1994 and was named Piho. It cycled between Air New Zealand and Air Malta between 1996 and 1998 and was then leased to Barak Airlines in Indonesia as PKILJ and, after returning to Air New Zealand, passed to Winair, Frontier Airlines and Atlantic Airlines Honduras. ZK-NAH was broken up in April 2015 at Caracas International Airport. As the 20th century drew to a close, in New Zealand, more and more 200 series were being replaced by the more capable and fuel-efficient 300s, with about a 50-50 fleet split between the two at the turn of the millennium. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that story interesting. Stay tuned for more history of airlines in New Zealand.